Of every power on the menu, super strength looks like the safe pick. No need for a flight license or anything, just hit hard and lift heavy. But it has different problems. It has no defined limit, physics still exist, and why are they even jacked? No, seriously. Like the women with super strength don't get all these muscles the men do. There's something about that's impossible, unless you have trenbolone sandwiches. But we'll get to answer that question. First, we have to understand super strength on a fundamental level. So what even is super strength? Strip away the cape and the comic books and strength is just force. Your muscles pull on your bones shove on the world, and the world moves. Being super strong means you make a whole lot more of that force than you ever should. Easy peasy. And then physics walks in. Because every bit of force you put out, the world hands straight back at you. You already know this one. Punch a wall as hard as you can and your hand loses every time. Chris Brown breaks his hand on people's faces. Okay, well he didn't break his hand, I just wanted to mention him. Umbrella, Ella. Still, that's just a regular human force going somewhere it isn't wanted. Now turn that up 100 times. You throw a punch hard enough to put a man through a brick wall. The exact same force as rolling back up your arm in the same instant. Your knuckles, your wrist, and all the little bones underneath. And they're still the bones you were born with, so yeah, the wall breaks, so does most of your arm. So before you throw a single super punch, you need a skeleton that won't come apart. We have a word for that. It's called durability, and it has nothing to do with how hard you get hit. Punching is still the easy part of this superpower. Lift the car off somebody the way half of these heroes have done at some point, and the entire weight of it pours down through your fingers. The metal crumples around them like wet cardboard because your hand is pressing out a few square inches and the car weighs 2 tons. Same with catching planes the wrong and right way, which we'll get to. Let's say your hands somehow hold. You don't. The weight that used to be divided over the 4 wheels of the car is now concentrated to your much smaller feetsies. And we all know what they say about guys with small feetsy-weetsies. On a normal kept road, which the government spent a lot of your taxes on, they push straight down into the road like you're standing on a beach. Mainly because the government spends the taxes elsewhere, but still. So now you also need hands that won't crush, skin that won't split, feet that don't sink a foot, wordplay, into the pavement while you're at it. And then there's one that never switches off. Control. Think about how much force you throw at the world without ever deciding to. You don't think about how hard to pull a door, you just pull it. Unless it doesn't open, which you actually have to push. You do these things without ever really thinking about them, as 2 viewers pointed out on my community post. So, what happens to control if you have super strength? You reach for the front door and the handle comes off in your fist. You lean on a wall to tie your shoe and you put your arm straight through it. Hey, matey Wadey throws you a high five and you take his hand off at the wrist. Ha! You go to sign for a parcel and the pen bursts into splinters. Even a hug goodbye has to be measured because half a second too tight and you crack Granny's spine on your own birthday. The strongest man alive would also have to be the most careful man alive, and he'd still be late for work because he can't open his own front door without taking it off the wall. The powers are stacking up fast and we still haven't touched the amount of energy you require and generate. Welcome to class. Let's do a quick physics section provided by these viewers, which I never verified a fact check. Picking up a fully loaded jumbo jet up off the runway by 1 meter takes about 940 calories of actual work. That's half a day eating, spent on a single lift. And your muscles are garbage at this. Maybe a quarter of what you burn turns into the lift. The rest comes out as heat inside you in about a second. Meaning, nearly 40,000 light bulbs are dumped into one body all at once, and your skin can't shred a sliver of it that fast, so you'd cook from the inside before the plane even cleared your head. Oh, and the fuel. You'd have to eat like the world is ending. A full pound of you. Gone. Every single rep. Superman doing Superman things would starve and boil at the same time, which is a strange way to find out you needed another power just to survive the first one. Oh, and that plane. 2 ways to catch one. A wrong way and a right way. The wrong way is the honest way, because of course it is. You're a small little thing, and the plane is a giant thing moving fast. Your body just punches a person-sized hole clean down the length of it, and the plane keeps right on going. Say you somehow stop the shell of the plane dead in the air. Perfect catch, not a scratch. The people inside it didn't stop. They kept going at that same old speed and slam into the seatbelts at full whack. Congratulations, you blended everyone you just saved. To solve it, we'll just grab it by the tails of the wheels from behind. If we somehow get those out of their storage part and slow it down ever so slowly, if your hands just don't go right through the metal because you're insanely strong, or if the tail doesn't break off because it wasn't made for that, whatever, nothing you can make up makes sense. There's too many counterpoints to each solution. Same thing goes the way for super strength as applied to heroes. Hulk, Superman, Colossus, The Thing, Luke Cage. Every last one of them is also bulletproof. Can you name a superhero with super strength that isn't like impossible to touch in some way? Well, I for sure can't. That might not be an accident. The genre worked this out a long time ago. Let strength stand on its own, and it tears its owner to pieces, so they never let it stand on its own. It always comes bolted onto a body that can survive it, which means the strength itself was barely doing anything. Everything actually keeping the strong guy in one piece is the other powers, the ones nobody puts on the poster. And once you spot that the strength is just hitching a ride on 3 or 4 other powers, the obvious next question is where the thing even comes from. Turns out nobody can agree on that either. Oh my God! Nerds disagreeing about something? Who would have ever thought? Spider-Man got bitten by a spider. Oh, and he didn't get muscles. More on that later. Hulk stood too close to a gamma bomb. Captain America got a needle full of serum in a government basement. And something about that seems so wrong saying it out loud. Superman just stands in the sunlight and charges up like a cell phone. Thor didn't get strong, he was born a god. Colossus turns his skin into metal, I think. The Thing flew through a cloud of cosmic rays and came back made of orange rock. Notice what's missing from every one of those? Not a single one of them got strong by being strong. Nobody trained, nobody lifted anything, gym bros, ha ha. The strength shows up out of radiation, or magic, or alien biology, or serum. And the body it lands on is just along for the ride. For everything else in life, strength comes from using your muscles until they grow. Here, it comes from anything except that. And that creates a funny problem down the line. If the strength doesn't come from anywhere you can measure, then you can't measure it. Sure, the genre genuinely has no idea who the strongest character even is, or well, they tried to fix it. I'll get back on that shortly. Hulk will tell you he's the strongest one there is. That's basically his catchphrase. Then Thor turns up and he's a literal god. Then you remember Superman is one universe over casually shoving planets around. Then Juggernaut walks in like, oh, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch! Whose whole deal is that once he's moving, nothing alive can stop him. Every one of them is written as top of the mountain and they can't all be. Marvel got so sick of this argument that back in the 1980s, they sat down and built an official strength chart. Yes, actually, I'm not lying. They sorted everybody into cases, twice, I think. Different cases starting from like human level strength up to 100 plus tons. Basically, after 100 tons, they honestly stopped counting. And then, according to the Marvel fandom, they basically had a disclaimer. These numbers aren't to be taken literally, they're only there to compare the characters to each other. So they built a ruler and then admitted the ruler isn't to be used too much? Why even build a ruler in the first place if you admit you're just making up shit? And it still doesn't hold. Put any two of these guys in the same fight and the strongest one in the room is whoever the script needs to win that day. The chart never decides it. The plot does. So, look where we've landed. A power with no real source and no real size. You'd think something this impossible to pin down would at least be impossible to beat. And it almost is. These heroes hardly ever lose because their own power gave out. There's a reason for that, and it's a little embarrassing. Other powers come with a built-in way to fail, or well, admittedly, not all of them do. Flight has falling. The second the flying stops, gravity's right there waiting and the hero drops out of the sky. Healing powers have... No, wait, they also do the same thing as super strength. So what does super strength do? Come on, think about it. When has a superhero ever just run out, pulled a muscle lifting the bus, gassed out halfway through the fight and had to sit down for a minute? It doesn't typically happen. The power never tires, left alone, it has no off switch at all. Which is a nightmare if you're the one writing the movie because a hero who can't lose is just a highlight reel. Nothing's at stake. So the writers have to invent a weakness from scratch, and since the power itself won't give them one, they reach for the same trick every time. They bring the weakness in from outside. Superman is the obvious one here, the most single, powerful being in the whole genre, and to make him unbeatable, somebody invented a glowing rock, kryptonite. A man who shrugs off nuclear weapons gets put on the floor by a paperweight because the writers had no other way in. And when the rock won't do, they swap the sun. Park Superman under a red one and he's just a confused guy in blue tights. Both of those things you carry into the room with you. Neither one comes from him. Then there's Bane. His whole strength is a drug called Venom, pumped into him through tubes. Great look, really. But it means beating Bane comes down to plumbing. Cut the tube, the strength drains out, and the big man folds over in withdrawal like a fentanyl addict. If your strength comes from a suit, then it runs on a battery, and batteries die. The strongest version of that hero is one dead power cell away from an ordinary man in a very expensive outfit. Now, there's one that looks like a real exception, the Hulk. He does have an off switch that comes from the inside. He calms down and shrinks back into Bruce Banner. But that technically still means the strength did not fail. The Hulk didn't get tired and weak. The whole character just packed up and went home, and the scientist walked back in wearing his torn pants. So across the entire genre, the strongest beings alive can only be stopped by a rock, a sun, a hose, or a dead battery. Every weakness is something done to them, never something the power does to itself. And we've now watched this thing lose its source and its size, and here it is with no real weakness of its own either, which leaves one strange question. If the strength comes from nowhere you can point to, can't be measured, and can't even fail on its own, then what are you exactly looking for when you look at the strong hero on screen? You're looking at the muscles! That is also what the thumbnail promised you. So, let's talk about muscles! Right at the start, I asked why these guys are so jacked, and I pointed at one thing that didn't add up, the women. So look at them side by side. Wonder Woman casually jumps through buildings, Captain Marvel goes toe-to-toe with the heaviest hitters in the universe, Supergirl does everything her cousin does. These women sit right at the very top of the strength charts, lifting the same impossible weights as the biggest men in the genre. And they're drawn lean. Athletic, sure, but nothing like the Hulk. Though She-Hulk has, some muscle, mammy. None of them have walls of muscle or veins like garden hoses. So stand Wonder Woman next to the Hulk and ask the obvious thing. They're in the same league of strong. So why does one of them look like a bodybuilder who found a genie and the other looks like she does Pilates and drink pumpkin spice lattes on a Tuesday morning? Same power, totally different body. That gap is the problem because of the muscle actually came for the strength, the strongest woman would just be as huge as the strongest men. They aren't, so the strength was never coming from the muscle to begin with. It actually gets even weirder when you compare it to physics. Yet again, let's talk about how you actually get muscles. Real ones, in real life. You get them by damaging them. You pick up something heavy enough that it genuinely hurts. The fibers tear a tiny bit and your body panics and rebuilds them slightly bigger so it doesn't get caught out the next time. I think that's the whole process, though some of you are going to correct me in the comments. I'm very sure of it, so go right ahead. I love you. Every ripped person you have ever seen built that body by repeatedly fighting something that was almost too heavy for them. Hold on to these words. Almost too heavy. The weight has to be hard. It has to push the muscle right up near its limit, or your body has no reason to spend the energy building anything. So now, hand someone super strength. What on this entire planet is heavy to them? Nothing! The heaviest object on Earth is a warm-up they can't even feel. There is nothing anywhere that's quote-unquote almost too heavy for a guy who could throw asteroids. So his muscles never get pushed hard enough to tear, and if they don't tear, they don't grow. Which means the really super strong person should be the least impressive-looking guy in the room. Lean. Honestly, maybe a little soft around the middle. Built like an accountant picking up a bus. And before you type it into the comments, yeah, I know a total beginner can put on some muscle without going super heavy, repetition versus heavy lifting, DOMs, early beginner gains, blah, 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 blah. But that's still their body reacting to something that feels hard to them right now. Nothing feels hard to a man who benches a building. The little exception still needs the weight to fight back. And he hasn't got any weight that fights back. But that's a small objection. The big one is better, and the real comic fans are already typing it because the comics did their homework here with some ways to solve it. In Dragon Ball, they train in gravity chambers and wear weighted clothing, cranking the resistance higher and higher so there's always something heavy enough to fight. A few of them basically have their own super gyms. The Thing and She-Hulk, the Titans over in their tower, all kitted out with gear, built to survive their kind of strength. Mr. Incredible just hauls around whatever's stupidly heavy and nearby to get back into shape. And some of them get the body as a side effect of using the power at all. Fans swear Spider-Man got the famous backside from years of web crawling. And Superman in the comics once bench pressed the entire weight of the Earth, 5 days straight, no sun or rest. He's jacked because a yellow sun lets him treat the planet like a dumbbell, which is exactly the kind of thing that keeps Lex Luthor up at night. And credit where credit is due. That's all real. That's exactly how muscle works. Heavy resistance over and over, the body forced to keep up, the fans patch my hull. So let me patch theirs. Look at what every one of those fixes actually needs. To build a gravity chamber that challenges Goku, you have to know precisely how strong Goku is. So you could just set it past him. To load Superman's machine, somebody at Star Labs had to work out the exact weight of the Earth and put it on a bar because 1 gram lighter and it's a warm-up. Every single one of these only works if you could stick a hard number on the strength. And remember the whole problem from earlier? This is the power the entire genre swears it can't measure for the most part. The one Marvel built the chart for and then admitted the chart was made up. So which is it? Either the strength has a real number, the gravity chamber works, and all that limitless stronger than you can imagine stuff was always the lie. Or it's truly limitless. And not one of these heroes could ever build something heavy enough to train against. It can't be both. I honestly don't know which one it is. Go fight about it in the comments and let the rest of us watch. Every now and then a show just says it out loud. The boys put Homelander in a padded muscle suit for a reason. For anyone that still isn't convinced, the women gave the whole thing away. They're the proof. Same strength, lean body because the body was always just a choice the artist made. They draw them in huge because a huge man reads as strong. They draw the women lean because, well, fan service. We want to see those women in tight undies apparently, or at least that's what directors think. The one big exception I mentioned earlier kind of makes it worse. She-Hulk, she's jacked on purpose, the rare super strong woman drawn with real size. So how did she get it? Not the gym. She took a blood transfusion from her cousin Bruce Banner and the Gamma did the rest. Even the muscular one didn't build a thing, her abs came out of a needle. Now you could rescue this one way, a hero who was already big before the powers ever showed up. That works technically. You spent years in the gym as a normal person, got swole the honest way, then got zapped. Fine, you earned that body. Except the day those powers switch on, nothing is heavy anymore, so that body isn't being held up by anything. It's frozen in place. A souvenir from back when weight still meant something, as it should slowly melt off you because you physically cannot push the muscle hard enough to keep it. A strong hero who stays shredded for 10 years is cheating just by holding the pose. So that's the lie sitting on every poster. Not the lifting, not the punching, the body itself. The one thing about super strength these movies will never get right. Because a soft little nobody picking up a bus doesn't sell a ticket. Not that as a hero just training the whole movie for nothing. They paint the strength onto the muscles because they can't show you where it actually lives, which is nowhere you can see. Almost nobody in the entire genre has ever gotten that right. Almost. A couple of them did, and they pulled it off in completely opposite ways. The first one is Invincible. Mark Grayson is one of the strongest characters in the whole genre, and look at him! He's a skinny 17-year-old with the build of a kid who plays a bit of basketball at lunch. Nobody drew him a wall of muscle because the show is honest about where his strength comes from. It's his alien dad's DNA, no gym involved. And it doesn't stop at the body. Invincible is the one that actually shows you what super strength does. When a strong guy hits a normal person at full power in this show, So the person probably just comes apart. Blood, the whole thing. We've seen what happens when a train runs through someone. Same thing should happen here. The show makes you watch the exact moment every other movie politely cuts away from, because that's what happens when something that can actually punch through a building decides to punch through a man instead. It even nails the part nobody else will admit. Mark spends half his time holding back. He has to. If he doesn't pull every punch around regular people, he kills them by accident. That's what real super strength would actually feel like. Not freedom. A constant, exhausting effort to not destroy everything you touch. Then there's the complete opposite approach. The best one, if you ask me, One Punch Man. Satayama is the strongest character in his entire universe, and he's bald, blank-faced, totally ordinary-looking guy with the body of a man waiting for a bus. And the whole joke, the entire point of the show, is that he ends every fight with a single punch while looking like absolutely nobody. How did he get that strong? He just tells you. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every day for 3 years. Yeah, it's bullshit. The show is openly laughing at the idea that strength has to come with a giant body, because here's the strongest man alive and he looks like he'd lose an arm wrestling contest to a teenager. Both of those got it. One by showing you the real cost the whole genre hides from you, and one by tearing the muscle off the power on purpose and pointing out how silly the lie always was. Everybody else is just selling you the poster. Except Spider-Man, who I will be making a video about in the future, how he solved the super strength problem. Please leave your suggestions for that in the comments. Yet! Super strength is one of the easier ones to solve. There's a power that looks like pure kindness, the one you'd hand to someone you love, and it might quietly be the cruelest thing in the whole genre. I made a video on it. It's right here. Just click it. Click it!